All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the Profit Roadmap. As always, we're your hosts, Ryan and Becca. This is the premier podcast created for field service pros to help you grow your business, stay on top of the latest trends, and help you provide even more value to the communities that you serve. We've got an awesome one lined up for you guys today, so we're actually super excited to welcome Tim Fisher, the Market Intelligence Director for Hardy. If you're not familiar with Hardy, they are the leading research and education trade association that is committed to helping the HVAC industry. So Tim's going to share with us some important strategies that HVAC businesses can use to focus on the environment. So Tim, hey, welcome to Profit Roadmap. How you doing today?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's jump straight into it here. Tim, can you tell us a little bit about your background? What got you into the industry?
Yeah, so sort of a happy accident. I had previously worked for another trade association, trade group here in based in Columbus, Ohio. And I was handling government affairs there. So it was an association focused on economic development, a lot of bond finance. Our membership was almost entirely composed of sort of state and local finance authorities that would invest in infrastructure. But I was looking to do something a little more connected to my background, which my background's a little more in economics, and just happened to come across Hardy through whether it was LinkedIn or Indeed, and applied, and the rest is history. It's funny. I knew. I think saying I knew next to nothing about the industry is overselling it. I knew nothing about the industry, and I think over the course of been here almost 5 years now, which is crazy in hindsight. But yeah, I've learned a ton. It's been a great learning experience. But definitely was not something I actively sought out.
I love
Yeah,
stories like that.
Yeah, I sort of fell into this kind of by accident as well. So I feel you there. Coming in, knew nothing about HVAC, electrical, plumbing, just like the trades industries as a whole. But over the past, it's been the better part of a decade. Yeah, it's crazy what you pick up, just like osmosis, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's nice. Working for an association is nice because any question you might have, you can go to people who do this every day and get a million different perspectives. So, you can get through the learning curve pretty quickly and actually find yourself, in a position to know maybe one or two things, slightly more than you might have known before.
For sure. So we talked a little bit in the pre-show. So Becca, you're in Dallas. You guys just had a crazy storm.
Yes.
Everyone's okay though, right? Like you guys are good?
Everyone's okay, but more rain today and the rest of this week. So it's
Yeah,
we're handling it. It's coming though.
yeah. So one of the things on the list to talk about today was sort of relating to climate change. So Tim, we'll take a peek at it here. So with the increased frequency of record-breaking weather due to things like climate change, how do you see that impacting the HVAC industry and the demand for services in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the first thing to understand is that it's not just a 1 year phenomenon here. This is, and you will have pockets within the country, globally, that may have cool or cold snaps. There's a lot of variation, but what it's doing more than anything else is influencing the extremes. And so, within the U.S. here, I mean, temperatures are going up, every year. Last year was a little bit more mild, but one of the, I would say, advantages of being in this industry now is, you can almost bank on the next year being a little warmer, especially if you had milder temperatures, just because that long-term trend is pretty clearly moving upward. But there's assuming that your growth or your sales are going to follow that trend is not necessarily the direction you want to go with it either, because there's a lot of other circumstances at play. But I think in the long run, you think that the longer sweep here of 10, 20 decades out, I mean, it's absolutely going to be I'd say a positive driver of sales, service work, but it's also going to lead to, I think, higher scrutiny from government agencies, because this is the connection to energy efficiency and assuming these systems will be running longer in the future, all of this interest publicly in trying to lower the amount of pollution or carbon or anything in the atmosphere, it's definitely there's going to be a much greater lens placed on this industry than maybe otherwise would have been, just because of how much the systems themselves, or how much electricity, how much it affects that power infrastructure as a whole. So, it's an extremely complicated topic with the sort of different threads that go all over the place.
Like the spaghetti charts for hurricanes.
The spaghetti charts, I love that.
Sorry, that was the first thing that popped in my mind when you said the threads all over the place.
But that's a good point, as with these like extreme weather events that we're having, there's more and more increased demand on the grid and our system for more AC during the summer, more heat during the winter. And I think I read something about regulations around green energy with HVAC and the HVAC industry. So is that something that will have to be met by the industry and need or demand, or can the HVAC industry meet that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's every year, and this has been going on for decades at this point. But well, maybe not every year, but every couple of years, there's broadly an effort by stakeholders, more I would say climate advocates, to increase the efficiency, sort of the baseline efficiencies that are used by systems nationally, and then that's codified in federal regulations. Sometimes there needs to be an act of Congress to get this stuff to happen. But what that does is it requires what's being sold into the market to be a higher efficiency product, which anybody who's in the trades obviously going to be aware of this. But what that means is that as a process is going to continue. I mean, there's talk, and I'm not sure exactly where it stands at this point, about moving to 95% efficient furnaces, which, to get to that point, you're basically talking about a furnace that is different in structure, in how it works from a lot of existing systems. And it's going to require, in a lot of cases, homeowners maybe to retrofit their homes specifically. If it's a condensing furnace, you've got to move sort of water and condensate outside. I'm certainly not a technician, as I said at the start of this. Right? I started learning this stuff 5 years ago. So, but I mean, what that really means is increased costs to homeowners. So it's all of those things create, just a lot of unexpected consequences, or unintended consequences, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that'll bias the market? Well, let me ask this question. The trend that at least I've been seeing is that the market seems to be biased much more towards like repair over replace at the moment. Do you think it's going to just push it further in that direction, or?
So yes and no. So I think repair versus replace, or that phenomenon, and I've heard from different manufacturers that they're not so much seeing more repair than replace. They're seeing just, I think, less replace.
Okay.
Right. But I'll add a little more detail to this too, which is that we've been getting some data on financing trends from FTL Finance, and the amount of finance that's actually being used now for service work, which to me speaks more toward repair, because there's what you can finance for new equipment and then what would be financed for service work. The amount being financed in service work is skyrocketing. So there is absolutely some movement toward more of a service repair emphasis now in the market. I don't know if that is primarily function of climate change or warming temperatures. I think right now that's an economic, well, and I guess you weren't necessarily implying this, but higher costs absolutely, play a part in that. I think more than anything right now, we're sort of in just this down cycle. The last couple of years were really good. And this industry tends to follow the housing market, and the housing market is in a little bit of a tough spot right now. The amount of home resale just levels are, about as low as they've been in 10 or 15 years. That absolutely is connected to how often some of these systems are going to get turned over. So I think right now I would expect hopefully in a year, this year, hopefully things will start to bounce back, but start thinking 2025, I think that shift may move back. You might see an increase in replacement regardless of the cost of the systems right now. And I think greater availability of finance, getting that stuff onto more of a monthly payment as opposed to just that upfront cost. I think that's probably where some of the higher costs become a little bit easier to swallow as a homeowner. But it's total tangent.
No, absolutely. That was great. Love the insight.
So speaking on that, like in what ways can HVAC businesses, refrigeration, like collaborate with organizations or educational institutions, government agencies to make the world better? Because ultimately that's what we want, like a nice, healthy place for everyone. And I know that's a journey. That's probably years of work and progress and progression and things we've already spoke about. But what can we do now with a little bit of steps we can do now?
Yeah, so I think in general, from a business perspective, obviously there is a focus, especially if you're a publicly traded company, on being thought of as a leader in a lot of ways. Making the world a better place, focus on ESG or DEI goals. But I think the more cynical perspective is that business is going to do what is in their best interest to make money. And I think that has greater sticking power in the long run. If a business is motivated purely by revenue, then maybe there's a lot of bad consequences there. But I mean, I guess where I'm going with this is I think there's a way to translate having more efficient systems and obviously leading to increases in revenue for whether it's the manufacturer, distributor, or contractor, installer here. I think selling more efficient product and selling it on the basis of, look, you're going to be using your system more in the years ahead. As a consequence of that, your energy costs, what you're paying on a monthly basis, are going to increase. So you do not want to be spending the bare minimum on a system right now, understanding that in the current climate, it is more expensive to buy products now than it might have been a few years ago. But you need to be thinking about the future costs here that you could be incurring here if you're going with something that's just not as efficient, doesn't use electricity as efficiently, or maybe doesn't have all the bells and whistles on it that allow for it to modulate refrigerant flow or whatever necessary to keep the building it's cooling or warming at a reasonable temperature. So I think it's that. I think it's how can a company work with government or education or whatever. I think it's just being transparent about where the trend lines are going and what needs to happen, because I think ultimately that will lead to better outcomes for everybody. And it can be both self-motivated and self-interested on the part of the business, but also could in theory lead to better outcomes.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, like you said, things are getting hotter. You're going to be using systems more and more. Oftentimes HVAC technicians are, they're brought out to fix things that are broken. So like a lot of times they're having to work in some pretty intense conditions, right? So whether it's middle of summer, like here in Florida, it gets pretty crazy. Other parts of the country, obviously winter, when they're going out and they're repairing furnaces and whatnot for heat, it can get very, very cold. Are there any strategies that you guys see that businesses can use or implement to ensure the well-being of their service technicians in those climates?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. That's a tough question, because I think most of demand, and it's going to vary a bit by the business and the business focus, but most of it is going to be emergency repair. I think very few homeowners are proactive enough or thinking about how many years their system has been installed to actually say, oh shoot, maybe we need to consider replacing this now. So when something like that goes down, there's not a ton of wiggle room around when it can and can't be fixed. Even more so if you think about refrigeration sector, and products that are being cooled that may, go bad if you wait too long and it's hot outside. So I think part of it is just being sensible. If there is planned work, something that is not an emergency replacement, and the weather is extremely hot out, I think you can build in, an availability of water, just making sure that, anybody who's actually doing the work stay hydrated, that they're not, not just dying of heat exhaustion from, just being thirsty. But, also taking breaks, if it's sitting in the truck and cooling off for a little bit. If you're in a situation where you can actually plan around when you're going to do the work and you're in a really hot place, like I know Arizona is dealing with this a ton, off peak hours. When is it coolest to actually do some of this work, and then lean into that as opposed to the middle of the day. So, that in other parts of the country, you may not have to adapt to the same extent as you might in the desert. But I think it's a few things like that. In the extent that you can plan around it, try to plan around it. But in the case where it's maybe more of an emergency replacement, maybe it's working in teams. There's always the cost burden of having more people at the job site. But if it's something that's going to take a while, maybe there's a rotation there. Somebody can be doing the lion's share of the work, and somebody can be on a break or whatever. But I think I don't think it ends up being rocket science. I think it ends up being a little more just being pragmatic about what the environment is dealing you, and how you as a business owner, you can actually keep your people happy, keep them healthy.
Absolutely. I like the kind of common sense approach. Sometimes you hear some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think to me it's logical. If it's hot out, you don't want to work somebody to the point where they're entirely miserable, because especially in this industry, but really just the trades in general, the availability of talent was just extremely limited most places. So the last thing you want to do is take somebody who could potentially be their first experience in this industry, and have them immediately soured on it and thinking about where they can go next. So it's, I think, actually trying to maybe respect the people that work for you enough that you can meet the basics. And I think, to me, being like, if the temperature is 95 degrees and somebody's going to be on the roof for 4 hours, yeah, let's make sure that they have a chance to actually come down, cool off, get some water, maybe stand in the shade for a bit before going back, because otherwise the productivity of their work goes way down too if they're just thinking about how quickly can I get out of here.
Yeah, I think that's an important mindset to sort of fall into, is having that level of respect and providing the resources necessary is something that is going to increase not only safety, right, but also the quality of work and maintain that quality of work that you probably want your business to be known for. Yeah. So, having a cooler in the truck, stocking it full of, Gatorades and waters and stuff like that. I think a lot of companies do that, but also like some things that I've seen is like pack some like towels in that cooler as well, so they can throw that on, on their way back up. It'll keep them cooler a little bit longer. It feels good, stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's those little, I don't know if they're like neoprene, but like these little towels that you can cool. You can wet it, stick it in the freezer, and wrap it around your neck, wrap it around your head, something, so that, yeah, exactly to your point. If you're doing anything like that and you're in direct sun, that's a massive, massive help to actually keep your body temperature regulated, so that you're not, on the verge of fainting, if you're out in the sun too long. So,
absolutely. So, spin it around a little bit here. So, for some maybe newer HVAC companies, they might have some limited time and resources. What are some more practical and simple ways that they might start incorporating climate change considerations into their business practices or their service offerings?
Yeah, so I think it's I hesitate in this environment, and I think it's changing a little bit, but I still think climate change as a phrase is
Mhm.
still a little politically polarizing. It's still loaded, and I think you have certain people who may, if you're a business trying to appeal, trying to find, trying to grow your business, trying to find people that are interested in working with you. I think you want to be judicious in how you market yourself. You don't want to necessarily position yourself for one political orientation or one perspective and risk alienating the other. I
Mhm.
think I think it's important to recognize that every year temperatures are increasing here. And I think it's sort of similar to what I was saying before about related to how a business, how an HVAC contractor company can work with government, work with education, work with whatever to make this a better world. I think similarly, you're trying to point out the fact that, hey, locally, and actually, let me back up. I think this also um, this needs to be more of a local focus. Removing global trends from the equation, just talking about what you have seen. What is your lived experience? If you can relate to a homeowner or business owner and say, the last couple of years, very clearly, the weather, the summer temperatures have been hotter than they had been previously. Um, Pointing out that and pointing out the impact of that on, again, your electricity bill, or that maybe your system just isn't working as well as it had been previously. So might be a need to replace that. I think it's actually pointing these things out and finding a way to market efficiency, cost savings. Uh, I think that's the hook. And I think, again, cost savings in this environment. Um, I think that's going to be something that people will find appealing. Um, so I think sort of a roundabout way of building climate change, building warming temperatures into your sales pitch. But I think it's a lot of that. Yeah, had another train of thought that I lost there somewhere along the way, but yeah, maybe it'll come back to me.
If it comes back, just
So
let us
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
But no,
I'll just jump in.
yeah, I think that's really important, right? Because climate change is something that has been so heavily politicized that throwing that out there publicly, absolutely, it could be something that either attracts or drives away certain individuals from using your business. So being able to look back and like say like, hey, here's the data, here's what's happening here in Fort Myers, Florida. The past 5 years, hotter and hotter. So you're probably going to want a system that's going to do that. The trend's going to probably keep going up from what we're seeing. And when you're in someone's home, like right, like you're the expert, so they're going to rely on you for that information because they're not going to have it. But I think, yeah, absolutely taking more of a, what's the word I'm trying to find here? More of like a not directly aligned one way or the other sort of approach. I think
Yeah,
that could be
and
beneficial.
I think the other part of it too is like leveraging this as potentially a way to increase the amount of service agreements or maintenance contracts that you have. Um, Knowing, again, I mean, if you can speak to the uptime of these systems increasing year over year, well, there's going to be a greater need to service them.
Mhm.
Not every homeowner should. I really wonder how many homeowners nationally get their system serviced on an annual basis. I rent, so I'm not going to. I'm certainly not on the hook for that, but I can tell you, in the 5 to 6 years we've lived at our current property, we haven't had anything serviced. So how many places like that, could you be shortening the useful life of the equipment needlessly? So it's if it's being used earlier in the year, if in the years ahead, and I mean, again, the data sort of reinforces this. If you are maybe turning on your air in early May as opposed to early June or maybe mid-April, depending on the temperatures, that's an extra month of runtime for the year. Right? What does that mean in the long run? So yeah, I think it's all of those things. It's just trying to be cognizant of the fact that the systems are going to be running longer, working harder, and trying to mold that into your pitch.
Yeah. I like how you both said as far as the strategy, make it local, but also like I feel like make it personal, like you said. Like I've lived in Texas for over 20 years now, and it's always hot. It's Texas, but it's gotten hotter and hotter, and the weather's been so inconsistent since the past 20 years I've been here. It's not normal. So I've lived it. And I think more and more people are starting to see that as far as like people are seeing it impact their money. Like I saw that big insurance companies like State Farm, I read they're pulling out of California with all these wildfires. They're tired of every year these bigger and bigger wildfires. Even in Florida, I heard like an insurer was like, "We're pulling out because all these hurricanes are coming in. You guys are building houses on the beach. It's gonna like these insurance companies can't keep up." So it's starting to actually impact your money and your taxes. So I can see legislation. There's more incentive I see coming along, and people are getting displaced. Where are those people going to go? It's I think that when it starts impacting our pocket a little heavier, maybe that's when people will start like, okay, we need to listen.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right, because I think people have a tendency to quibble over if it could be something they see in the news. I mean, we live in an era where people don't trust the media. They don't trust what they see. There's always a question about it. Is this, I read, something, this number suggests this, but I don't buy it from this because of the source that it came from. Like, the way to cut through that from my perspective here is just immediate. Like, can we just address the lived experience of the person we're dealing with?
Correct.
What have they seen? What are they experiencing? It's exactly right. That to me is the thing that's going to bridge sort of that gap, so that we don't have to use maybe the politically loaded terms and just talk about how you can sell something and make it useful or valuable to your end customer.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's something about that where, like you said, you can leverage that person's lived experience. The technician coming into their home, they are the expert. Sort of breaking it down to that level, that's something that can be super, super cool. I like the idea of no pun intended, cool. Anyway, but that's something that can absolutely be super valuable, and it sort of removes all of the divisive stuff around it, and it's just person to person, which I think is super important. So absolutely, I would say that's something that's super powerful. At Hardy, are you guys seeing any other strategies? Maybe something a little more like directly sales, things like incentives, rebates, anything like that are seeing better traction, or what does that look like from your end?
So that's a good question. So our membership. So we don't have HVAC contractors in our membership. We work companies that join are manufacturers, distributors, and then generally the vendors of products. So Field Edge, for example, is a member of ours. So we'll have members that will appeal directly to the contractor. So it's difficult for me to speak specifically to uptake on rebates, but I can tell you just both anecdotally and I think in some of what we're just seeing on the financing side, the availability of rebates and incentives on a state basis, I don't think they're necessarily being leveraged as much as they could be. And I think moving forward should absolutely be something that a contractor business is thinking through how they can weave this into a conversation with a homeowner, because there is a lot of money on the table right now from utilities, from federal government, from state government, from municipalities to lower the cost of the systems. And to, I heard, I'm not going to take credit for it, but somebody recently made a joke about distributors saying that we don't sell AC anymore. We sell cars, because that is basically the cost of is now it's you're basically buying a new car, maybe a slightly used car.
Yeah.
But so if somebody hasn't bought a new system in 15, 20, 25 years, they're going to be shocked by what they're seeing. And anything that you can throw at that to lessen the sticker shock, I think has to be a strategy. So, and there are great resources too. So there's it's literally Desire, but it's DSIRE. I think it's NC State University operates this database effectively of state and I think municipal rebates for a ton of different industries. So solar, I mean, if you were looking for a rebate for installing solar panels, this would be the place to go to try to figure out what's available. And HVAC falls exactly within that too. So if you were wondering what is in your state, what you could be telling your customers about, I think that is a great publicly available resource for free you just go to and start finding that information, and then talking about it, getting it on mailers or getting it on your website, anything like that.
Absolutely. I'll see if we can get that linked in the show notes too. Make it easy for you guys to access that.
Just continuing on that trend, like how can the Hardy Research and Educational Foundation help HVAC businesses stay on top of the latest research, technologies, and just best practices during the times we're in right now?
Yeah, so I would say we're sort of high level. Our foundation in the past, we've typically leveraged it for broader industry focused things. So, I mean, we did a documentary a couple of years ago that was funded by the foundation that addressed the talent shortage in the industry. It was sort of like a twin purpose of both laying out for anybody who happened to come across it, this talent shortage, this gap that exists for the trades in particular. But then also trying to showcase HVAC as a place to be, as an industry to work in, kind of showing the long-term advantages to building a career like that. So I think now we leverage the foundation sort of on an as-needed basis, but I think that aspect of what we do, I think it pays dividends sort of in the long run. But I think more specific, I think kind of getting at what you're asking, that the question specifically, I think a lot of what we produce, I oversee the market intelligence outputs for our association, for any member, but a lot of what we produce is publicly available. There's a lot of stuff on our website, on our blogs that a contractor company can easily access. We also partner with a lot of the contractor associations. So we have a really good relationship with PHCC, with EGIA, with ACA, any of these groups. So I think a lot of what they're talking about, we're talking about. And so I think it's being aware of these resources and trying to more often than not come to these, like seek out some of these sites, subscribe to newsletters where possible, just to get that information on a regular basis. I think one of the things that I think is a little disappointing about this industry relative to others is in a lot of cases, if you're just looking for information or news about what's happening and you Google it, you're not really going to find any great detail about what's happening. You're more often than not just going to get hits for contractor company in your area as opposed to news about what's happening. So,
Yep.
knowing some of these resources, I think trade associations generally in this space are a good place to start. I think, and just bookmarking them, going to those sites and seeing what's available. I think that's probably the best way to kind of build that in.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've definitely lived that, where it's like, what's going on in the HVAC or like the electrical space right now? Like what's shaking up their world, and like Googling it, like good luck.
I tell you, I was talking about the learning curve, trying to understand this industry, and I have a million different questions, but you Google it and 90% of the search results are useless. So you have to get creative in figuring out where you're going for your information.
That's funny because about 2 weeks ago, Kayla, she's like marketing manager on the Fielder side. She's like, "Hey, can you find some like articles for Tom to do some blogs for HVAC trends?" And that's exactly what I found. I'm like, I have to really dig. So I Googled and I'm like, this is useless. Like, I just need news. So yeah, so we should check out Hardy's website.
Yes. Start with the Hardy site. Absolutely.
Yeah, I googled it. I just for fun I googled it, and yeah, my first couple results are just local contractors. Which good on you guys for your
Right?
SEO.
No, actually, see, that is actually the upside of this whole thing is
Mhm.
so when I talk to contractor audience about what it is that they can do, we'll a lot of times our members will invite us to speak to their customers, and so this year, unfortunately, I would say that both this year and last year, the message on the market outlook for the year has been a little lackluster. But actually trying to then tie in how you can try to find opportunity, and it's the SEO. It's making sure your website is popping up first, and there are a lot of companies that are doing it right. It's very clearly, and if you're searching and you're getting all of those hits right away, just for something only semi-related, there are a lot of really really high performing companies out there.
For sure. So when it comes to the market intelligence side, what are some of those other big things? So you mentioned SEO. What are some of the other kind of performing things that you guys are seeing?
Well, so I think one of the things that we try to do, especially in trying to translate, so I suppose I give you a little more context too for what the market intel team is. So
Mhm.
for a long time, Hardy and really any sort of business focused association where company pays to join for access to certain resources. A lot of these associations will offer benchmarking programs where
Yeah.
you company can join, share their data, and then they'll receive back basically kind of the typical median overview of how a company is performing and where they line up with that. So we've done this for a long time, and then really around 2019 we launched this market intelligence division business unit where we're taking a lot of that benchmark information and trying to apply it to more publicly available market data, to talk about trends, talk about what's happening, because exactly the point we're just making about there being a real dearth of information out there. We wanted to try to leverage what we had to give our members and really the public at large a better feel for what's happening. But so to that end, I mean, what the other things that we see that we talk about, I think all of that, all that information, all that data has suggested to us that finance is definitely underutilized. Yeah, if you are a contractor company and you're not actively pitching, maybe not pitching, but if your conversation with a homeowner is not focused first on a monthly payment and you're showing the total sticker price, it's never been a greater problem than it is now. So I think
Absolutely.
that's been a big one that we've really lasered in on, and I guess more or less become evangelists for the finance industry, trying to get people to leverage it, because it's just too the product is too expensive, and that's not going to change. It's going to keep increasing in the next couple of years.
Especially with the cost of everything right now. I as personally as a consumer, I'm more definitely willing to look at financing. Like if I can pay month to month installments, I do that for my phone right now. Like it's, I think a lot of more people are more incentivized to definitely go that more finance route than like one down huge lump sum.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right. And I mean, I think you immediately, if you're presenting the entire cost, you're immediately screening out a part of the population from getting higher efficiency products, because they're going to be too scared by that total all in price. If you can present it in a more reasonable, I mean, not to make this about cars again, because I made the analogy before, but like when you go in to buy a car, like you are being presented with, pretty well, hopefully a pretty reasonable cost structure on what you're going to be paying on a monthly basis. You're never seeing the total price, and they can always get massaged a little bit on the edges too. It's the same thing in this industry, and in trying to sell this stuff now. It's finding out a way to make all of that more achievable for a homeowner. I think is the objective.
Yeah, my brain immediately went back to the automotive example. I came from the car industry before I jumped into this, so like, it's a very tangible thing for me, that analogy. And it's, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like when someone looks at a car, if they're looking at it online, A lot of places, like you'll see the total thing on there, but they'll, the car might be $16,000, but that's not the number you see first. It'll be, $250 a month. And then, it's there, but it's, maybe it's in gray. It's not highlighted in the bright colors and all that stuff. And, yeah, no, absolutely. And I definitely think that people have sort of been driven towards that sort of like monthly approach of, how much can I spend every month? What fits into that budget? I don't want to go too much down that rabbit hole because it can be, as someone who prefers to look at the sticker price and everything, it can be depressing to see like how much am I paying in TV shows, subscriptions, Netflix and Hulu and all these other things. So
let's not get talking about Netflix.
But like that's where that's at. And Tim, you'd said like there's you're driving away a large portion of people because not everyone is going to be that in the car industry we call them cash buyers, where they want to come in, they just want to buy the car for whatever that out the door price is. Most people we're looking at the monthly. So all that to say, financing is absolutely something that should be utilized.
So we kind of talked around this as far as like, I think we've hit on this a few times on how businesses can educate their customers on the effects of climate change. And I think there's a lot of reasons around that. We talked about making it local, talk about the personal lived experience. There's somewhere I was going with that because I actually had a really good question. I just approved.
It's okay. We hit the record button and it's all the pressure's on. Okay. For anybody watching this, you're going to get to see me mute myself and sneeze like 6 times, so that's good. It started heating up, and so my allergies are going nuts here.
I think I was going to go with like, I guess first businesses really need to make sure they are educated on the effects of climate change or just climate events we're having and things like that. If we don't want to use, because they might not want to use that word at all when they're talking to their customer. So they themselves should be educated so that they can then speak to their customers. But do you ever see, or do we see the possibility of HVAC companies partnering with solar panel companies? Because I see that being a big thing, or like people are talking about all these different ways of reducing their AC costs and they're looking at their energy resources. Do you see that as a potential brainstorm or mesh between HVAC companies?
Very possibly. I mean, I think especially if you consider the home as an increasingly connected ecosystem where every appliance, everything in your home now has seemingly a way to be connected to the internet that speaks, that they're all speaking to each other. I think there are absolutely ways of leveraging the interconnectivity. I think to your question specifically about whether or not you can partner in some ways on this, I think it's only a matter of time before one of these companies, and I mean most of these the major manufacturing companies are all in sort of adjacent industries. They all seem to be or investing in or purchasing brands that are doing a little bit of everything, I suppose, that focused on the home. So I think it would certainly be plausible to see something like that down the road. I don't know off the top of my head any examples necessarily yet. I'm stuck on the solar panel heat pump example and trying to figure out a way that you could maybe some sort of a package system. You might have a panel on the side, but no, I guess, yeah, I'm sure there's something there. I don't have a great idea right now of what that would look like.
But I'm also curious, technology in general, like every year there's advancements in technology in all facets of our life. So, maybe not my lifetime, but in the next maybe 50, 100 years, the technology we use for our HVAC systems, that I'm sure that will become obsolete. So there will have to be some kind of shift, I feel like, because of technology. Period. Maybe they won't make or manufacture those things the way they do anymore at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the larger concerns, I think, it's immediately more of a problem for wholesale distributors, but would eventually become a problem for installers. The proliferation of DIY products.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I think Quilt is the company I'd seen the other day. There's I think a former uh, whether it's former employees of Google or there was some sort of connection to Google, sort of irrelevant, but new heat pump technology that they're what's unique about it is maybe less so the product they're selling, but more their go to market strategy. They're appealing directly to the end user.
Wow.
They're offering sort of upfront transparent pricing and connecting you with a team of installers, or at least this is their marketing pitch. And I think that we've seen more and more companies that have started to crop up kind of going about selling the product in this way. And I think that's probably the clearest way this affects, at least right now, the technology advance or affects the industry. Now, I don't think this specific product is necessarily built to be installed yourself, but there are several companies out there focused on trying to make maybe more of an enterprising homeowner feel like they can take on this job. I think at this point it's primarily ductless products, but yeah, I think you project out 50 to 100 years from now. I think this industry's landscape, I think, looks a lot different at that point in time, which something that I think smarter people than us will have to figure out how to adapt to that. If your business is directly involved in that space.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess I can see the pros and the cons of that. I mean, for the end user DI, do it yourself, like it saves you cost maybe significantly, but on the other end, what if you don't know what you're doing? It could cost you a lot more in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now there's still plenty of drawbacks to that. If you're trying to go about doing it, I think you would have to have you'd have to be somewhat handy, I think, to with a lot of this stuff to still be able to work. I think the marketing materials for some of the products make it seem like it's probably a lot easier than it actually is. But again, I think it's only a matter of time before companies start getting that right. So yeah, there's pros and cons, but I think in the long run, anyway, a manufacturer, some of those products can get closer to the end user. I think it's probably something they work toward no matter what.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept that I haven't come across that one yet, but definitely gets the brain going.
Yeah. What if we all, this question always comes up in our podcast. What about AI? I could totally see that. I mean, with software, as far as a integrated software program with an HVAC system, if you have a smart house, things like that. Do you see AI as being a big part of the industry right now, or integrated?
So well, yes, but it's hard, I think, at this point for me to have a clear sense of how. So one of the things that we see, again, distributor membership, I think leveraging AI to help, say, optimize warehouse like layouts or anything like that can in some way enhance the logistics side of the business. I see very clear ways where that's applicable. On the product side, I would guess, at least where my mind immediately goes with this, is toward diagnosing problems maybe before they arise, or seeing system faults. And I think that's probably something like, 24/7 monitoring, knowing what's happening all the time, or being able to predict within some margin of error if a system is going to fail. I think that'll absolutely have an impact. Now, maybe not as transformatively as just completely cutting out distribution and contractors entirely. But just as a way of interacting with that product in the long run, definitely. And I would say, only scratching the surface when it comes to like my own exploration with AI. Like I love some of the chat bots. I think it's a great resource. But we're talking about one small aspect there. I think, again, in the long run, all of this stuff is going to be very, very closely tied together. And it's I'm sure there's enough. I mean, going back to your spaghetti chart analogy, like
it's all pasta dish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So focus on maybe something a little more close to home. You'd mentioned that you guys do benchmarking. Are there any like benchmarks that like when you guys share them, people are just like, oh wow, I had absolutely no idea. Like that's where that's supposed to be. Like, is there like a trend with that, or is it like kind of just all over the place?
It's a really good question. As an analyst, I would immediately try to make this more complicated than it is. But I mean, from our perspective right now, one of the really clear examples of a benchmark being out of whack the last couple of years has just simply been inventory. I mean, distributors stocked up dramatically through COVID because supply lines were unpredictable, and some of the inventory patterns were just astronomically high. Now that's fortunately coming down a little bit, but shoot, that is a good question. I mean, maybe making this more tangible just for the audience listening to this, I still come back to I referenced the growth in what we were seeing in service work being financed. Both the amount of products being financed right now, or the amount of service work that's being financed relative to equipment, both that growth is pretty crazy. But I guess the other part of this is that we've seen, and it would sort of be expected, but we've seen this growing gap in both the amount of money that's being requested by a homeowner for work being done, and the amount actually being approved for whatever job. So, So what I'm getting at is, so basically, system costs, the cost of everything has gone up. So of course you would expect the amount that somebody is requesting is going to be increasing, and you can see that trend line pretty clearly. But the amount of people being actually approved, that's coming down, I think, in large part because of just this interest rate environment we're in. It's more costly to lend, and so who is actually getting the money in these cases are going to be certain borrowers where the credit score might be a little bit higher. So it's a lot of times it's going to be the homeowners, the individuals who maybe need to finance more because they can't afford the upfront costs. They're the ones that are going to, have to go to second, third look, whatever, to try to get money. So I think that stands out to me just because it underscores the scale of the task of selling in this environment. I keep talking about the importance of finance, but it's hard to sell if people can't actually get the money.
Yeah. I mean, a prerequisite to buying something is having the funds for it, right? So,
yeah,
absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Are there any more like positively skewed things that you see that people are doing right?
Oh man. Well, so that's the thing is like it's the scary stuff that jumps out to me. The more positive stuff, I think I just kind of brush away. Now that is a good question. I'm trying to think of something like that's maybe more positive. I don't know. Maybe come back to me on that. There's nothing that's jumping out to me right now.
I'll shoot you an email and I'll tag you.
That's right. Yeah. You can fill people in.
No, I mean that's sort of like the bias towards things that you can work on, right? Like if things are swell over here, then okay, we don't need to focus on that, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of business owners also fall into that sort of similar pattern where it's like, oh, all the lights are green. Good. Yep. Mm-mm. Yep. I don't want to benchmark my PC, and it's like, you need to upgrade your graphics card. It hurts a little, but
I'd love to
yeah.
benchmark my PC.
Been a minute
I
for me.
did
I don't know if I want to
question
do it.
is, I've had this PC since, this is so off subject, but this is such an old machine. Um, it, but exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, as the industry, the industry is evolving. I mean, most industries right now in the field industry are evolving, and so would we agree that as it's evolving, us businesses, organizations should also be evolving with it, keeping up with the latest trends, skills, and certifications. So, what new skills and certifications do you believe are important for field service professionals, and how do they help support their teams in acquiring these skills?
Really great question. I mean, again, I feel like this is a cliche for me to say this, but I would say just familiarity with data. I think, and I mean, stripping it down even more than that, I think there's a lot of there are a lot of companies out there that maybe not even aren't working regularly in Excel, and might not have a great feel for all the different things you can do with Excel. I think to understand what's happening in your market, um, I think there needs to be to stay competitive in the long run. There needs to be a baseline familiarity with how you can actually pull down relevant data, find relationships, and actually look at it and understand it. Um, so I think there are a lot of great online courses where you can just learn at a pretty reasonable, easy pace how to how to how to use Excel. But I mean, if you know how to open up Excel on your desktop, how to actually get the most out of it. How to actually interpret what you're seeing. I think that goes a long way because there are, especially if you're younger in the trades right now, you might already have kind of this inbuilt advantage over an existing competitor because the trades, the HVAC contractor base, really just anybody in HVAC, it's skewed a little bit the age of those working toward the upper end, and so naturally as people get older, they're not as current with what's happening unless they're really active in keeping up with professional development. I think there's an inbuilt advantage there, but I think if you're older and you're trying to manage and keep up, I think it's both learning data, but then I'm mentioning professional development. I think it's regularly trying to learn and to stay current and to think about, I guess, just thinking critically about what you're seeing in your market and how you can adapt to that. I think all that's important.
We recently did some surveys for Service Applied and Field Edge, and I think that's what we're even learning in our training to our members is I think it's needing to gear more towards like the business teaching reports and analytics and KPIs because that's something a lot of businesses struggle with and understanding is a very critical part of running a business too. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm saying this realizing I'm not actually that young anymore, but I think there are a lot of
You're
things
young.
that right. I think there are a lot of things that people my age or younger, and I think this goes really regardless of the generation that you take for granted because it's you've been doing something forever, so you just sort of assume that everybody can do something. And I think anything involving tech literacy, working with computers, all these things, I think we generally assume and kind of wave away what are probably very real challenges for somebody who did not grow up with a device next to them all the time. And so I think the there's a barrier in how you communicate information that can only be remedied just by training, by learning, by trying better articulate where you can go to catch up in a lot of cases, or just establish a baseline.
So come to those trade shows, people.
Yeah.
Seriously, okay. I mean, that's a good place. I feel like coming to like a SEC conference, we have trade shows. That's a great way to know what you don't know or figure out what you don't know. In some cases.
No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, any sort of peer learning. I know a lot of different contractor associations have different mixed groups. That if you're not leveraging some of those to actually see what your peers are doing, especially if they're having success, I think it's going to be tough to keep up, because this industry, relative to a lot of others, is really, really fragmented. It's still dominated by a lot of, small, less than 5 employee businesses. Maybe one owner that's had it for decades, and sort of the longer arc for really any industry as it matures is that the smaller guys kind of get eaten up by the bigger guys, and it just kind of continues to snowball until you reach some sort of equilibrium. And I think we're definitely in the early stages of that. So if you want to keep up and you want to continue running your business or staying in your business, and competing with some of the new players, you've got to keep up with all of this stuff.
I like one of the things you said around like tracking and understanding, right? Mm-hmm. And then and then kind of splitting those things up, because it is one thing to like plug the numbers into Excel and then to look at the graph, but it takes almost another skill set to be able to like really understand like why that number is what it is, right? So absolutely, going back to professional development, everything, I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I made the comment earlier about people, we live in a time when you can use data in a lot of different ways. You can kind of find a statistic to back up any point that you have. I mean, it's similar if you do your own analysis. You might look at something and, think that you found something really, really relevant, something that, explains maybe a question or answers a question that you had. But you might also just be seeing something that's a red herring that's thrown up just by virtue of a quirk in previous month's performance, or just some anomaly. And it's being able to actually identify what those anomalies are, what to look for. That's really where I think you start seeing advantages in being able to leverage data and information.
Yeah, having that long-term history is going to help you really kind of sift through those outliers. And I think that's where someone like Hardy would come in and be a very beneficial partner.
Yeah, we try to be. Absolutely.
So like I was saying, man, hey, thank you so much for coming and being a guest on the Profit Roadmap. If people want to learn more about you or Hardy, what's a good spot to find you guys at?
Well, so hardynet.org is our website. So, feel free to check out our website, see what's happening there. But I would say more than anything, LinkedIn, any of the socials is probably the best way of keeping up with what Hardy is doing, and realistically being able to track what's happening in the industry at large. So I encourage you to go to those places.
Absolutely. We'll make sure we get those linked in the show notes for you guys, so it's super easy to find it.
And so thank you all for listening to the Profit Roadmap. Remember, you can listen to this show on all major streaming platforms, including Apple, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Be sure to visit our show notes at serviceautopilot.com/podcast to get links to all topics we discussed in today's show. And if you have any questions, guest recommendations, or if you want to be on the show, email us at theprofitroadmap@exploretechnologies.com. Explore is spelled XPLOR. Thank you all.